When you're drilling out spot welds, it's not really that hard to do. I don't like using a spot weld cutter. It cuts out too great big of a hole. It's actually pretty simple. We have 4 spot welds right here. If you just simply take, get you a small enough pilot hole. These little bitty holes doesn't really amount to diddly squat when in the grand picture of things. We're gonna wind up, when we put our panels in anyway, you'll fill them up because that's where you'll put your welds in. That gives you a little extra bite for your weld. But you have 4 spot welds here. And what you're gonna wanna do is, you'll take your pilot bit, I'm trying to think of where I set all my bits at when I brought them over. There they are. You can run your pilot hole all the way through it. There's nothing wrong with that. Or, you know, you kind of, when you drill out enough of them, you'll kind of get a feel of right before your pilot bit goes through, so you can kind of stop. So you'll leave, you're almost all the way through on your back piece. You have a really good dimple in it, or you can just put it all the way through. It doesn't really matter. You hear how the tone changed right before it went through? You listen for that, and you can stop it just shy of poking through. Hear the tone change? I stopped, so I didn't go all the way through that one. That one was real easy because there's enough rust behind there, it doesn't pop that one loose. So we've got these 4 pilot bitted out. I use an 1/8 inch pilot bit. And you just come back in with, I use a 5/16. Sometimes, I mean, you wouldn't have to go that much bigger, but the bigger the bit, the shallower it'll cut. Smaller the bit, you're gonna have to like poke all the way through to get to the bottom of your tack weld. So what you're looking for when you do this, when you drill that out, you're looking for, there's gonna be a little ring you'll see form up in the bottom in your cut of your drilling. That is your tack weld. Now when you hit that little ring, you've pretty well punched through your outer material, and you really don't need to go any deeper. What that'll do is that'll allow you, when you're done, you'll have like you'll see the dimple mark, the divot marks in there from your drill bit, but you don't have to poke that great big hole all the way through. Don't try to hog it all out at one time. Go in, drill, remove a little material, pull back, check, remove a little material, pull back, check. There we go. We can see our little defined little ring in each one of those. I'll show you what that looks like. If you see in the bottom here, see that defined little ring? You can see that in each one of them. That little ring there it tells you that you pretty well cut through your spot weld and you're ready to pop that off there. I'm using a seam splitter. I'm not really having to tap a whole lot. I'm just tapping on it. I got the bigger hammer. It's just a little easier to finesse this thing with the bigger hammer than it is having to really swing on that littler hammer. But with those cut out, it makes it pretty easy to just go ahead and tap that on through. And a lot of times if it's just holding on by a little bit, like maybe this one here is holding on by a little bit, and possibly this one, you'll hear it, you'll hear it pop when it lets go. We're gonna tap this through. We're gonna see how well those four are holding. And what that'll do is when you come through like this, a lot of times what it'll do, if you have a wedge or something, anything putting pressure in here on this, the closer you get up here and put pressure, you don't want a crazy amount of pressure, but a lot of times when you're doing that, that pressure between the two panels, when you drill through, it will actually pop them loose. But these four here are so close together, you're not really going to get that effect on these. Now, when you're doing like these under here, like I did yesterday, you start that wedge in here, and as you go, whenever you have completely drilled through your spot weld and the material is ready to let go, it will actually pop loose. And so that will enable you to not have to drill all the way through. Now, some of these you can see that I have drilled all the way through just because sometimes those spot welds or pinch welds, whatever you want to call them, sometimes they're really burned in good, and they're actually burned in a little bigger than that 5/16 bit is. So you kind of got to punch all the way through those just to make sure that you get all of that spot weld off. A little bit hanging right there. So we'll come up here and we'll go after this spot weld. See, that one has completely let go. You can see the chisel up in there. We'll just work our way down over to this one. That side has let go on it, so we'll come back. See, that is completely let go now. And we'll just work on this side of this one. Now that one's completely let go. This stuff here, this rust you see falling out, that is where that cab mount comes in. That's where I said I'm going to cut that little window. That way I can reach up in there with the blaster inside that cab mount, because the cab mounts are good. But if I just leave the inside of them, they're only going to be good for so long. Just that little bit of tapping, a little bit of drilling, that whole panel right there is now loose on the bottom. Now all I got to do is come up this front side, get those loose, and this whole kick panel comes right off. And I'll show you that I didn't have to drill all the way through any of these here to get that to happen.